I'm one of what feels like hundreds of journalists at the Rolls building today. It's a momentous day in media and royal history as Prince Harry takes to the witness stand to give evidence in his trial against Mirror Group newspapers. Behind me is a pretty extraordinary scene in and of itself. There's a sense among the punters and the reporters who are here today that there have never really been this many journalists, paps, etc. outside the Royal Courts of Justice before. And within the court building itself as well, it's a similar story. Courts 14 and 15 are pretty much at capacity. Normally you only use one courtroom, but there's been appointed an overspill room for the vast number of journalists that want to get in and report on what's going on. This is a story that appeals to all kinds of people all across the political spectrum. There hasn't been a royal take to the witness stand in the way that Prince Harry is doing today for the last 130 years. The anticipation was palpable before he arrived, and as he stepped out of his blacked out 4x4, there was a hushed silence amongst everyone present, all grappling to get a photo and get a look at the prince on his way into court. The moment that Prince Harry was sworn in today before he gave his evidence, his witness statement became public domain. It's a very long and detailed witness statement that contains a number of allegations. Since the witness statement became public, numerous journalists have been pouring through it line by line, trying to get a sense of what he's alleging and how he feels about everything that's been going on. Basically looking for more revelations on top of the ones that we already have from his previous litigation and from the litigation that's been happening here so far. To kind of cast light on what was going on at the Mirror Group at this time and how it intersected with Prince Harry's life. Pretty much everyone who's here and everyone in the broader public knows that Harry has suffered in some sense at the hands of the tabloid media. Part of the reason this trial is going on is to ascertain exactly how badly he suffered. Prince Harry alluded to journalists and editors having blood on their hands in what was an extremely emotional witness statement. Before the Mirror's barrister, Andrew Green Casey, commenced his questioning of Harry, he acknowledged that the process might be traumatic for him. And he said that if he found any of the questions to be unduly intrusive or if he felt upset at any point, he was permitted to take a break. And indeed, for a man who has been subject to public and press intrusion his whole life, this will be one of his greatest interrogations to date. Being cross-examined is a pretty demanding process for anyone. For Prince Harry, it'll be even tougher because as well as the eyes of the court on him, he'll also have the eyes of the world. I'm here today with my editor at Expose News, Graham Johnson. Graham is also editor of Byline Investigates. Graham, what's your involvement so far been in the history of the Mirror litigation?
So for about 8 years, I've been reporting on not only the trial, but outside of the trial, doing investigations to try and get new evidence of unlawful information gathering at the Mirror Group.
And has any of that reporting fed into Harry and the other claimants' cases?
Yeah, loads of it. So for example, Prince Harry spoke about a story which was published in 2002, Prince Harry drug shame at the News of the World, which was followed up by the Mirror. And anyway, what Prince Harry said was that this story at the Mirror was unlawfully gathered. It involved phone hacking and use of private investigators to get private information. And that's one of the stories that Byline Investigates and Expose News did a couple of years ago.
So yeah, obviously you've been covering hacking litigation for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've noticed a huge crescendo in what's been happening?
Yeah, I first started writing stories about this litigation and phone hacking 8 years ago in 2015. And, you know, often I was the only reporter in court. And I remember trying to, as well as publish it on Byline Investigates, trying to, you know, sell it into the Guardian or the Independent or the BBC or any of the big broadcasters, and no one wanted to take that copy or run that story. And anyway, that changed in 2019 when Prince Harry launched his case against News Group and the Mirror, the case which is at the High Court today. And what that did, it focused global attention on this story, because many people have thought the phone hacking story was over and done with. It was old news, it was historical allegations from 20, 30 years ago, or it was a cult story which were, only played out to a small audience of people involved in press reform. And that's not the case. It has massive appeal. Even in America, even in the States, there's lots of people following this case. Lots of people who support Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I think they're called the Sussex Squad, their fan base. A lot of them they're based in the States, and they're based in all over the world, really. It's really interesting, these people who mightn't really understand the British justice system. They mightn't really understand how the British papers work, but they know something is wrong. Instinctively they know something is wrong, so they want to find out about it. When I was filing this copy on Byline Investigates, what increased the readership was these people from America, the Sussex Squad in America, becoming interested in this, which was amazing, really.
We published a story on Prince Harry's witness statement, which has been newly released into the public eye.
Yeah.
What are your kind of top line thoughts on it?
The statement's quite interesting. It's split into 3 parts. There's an introduction whereby he says, my life and the life of my mother, Princess Diana, has been made very difficult by unlawful information gathering at the Mirror. And he explains the general effect it had on his life, not being able to live a normal life and getting paranoid and becoming suspicious of the people around him, because he says his mates were hacked, his girlfriends were hacked, his aides at the palace were hacked, his private conversations involving his father, who's now the king, and his brother, Prince William, were obtained by deception. And then what he does, he lists a number of articles in the middle of this statement, which he says are, him and his legal team are gathered by illegal means. And then at the end of it, one of the things he says, listen, I'm coming to court to give evidence. I'm not afraid to do that. And you do have to have a bit of bottle to come to court and expose yourself to cross-examination by a King's counsellor. In fact, there's only 2 journalists who are giving evidence at the High Court about Prince Harry's articles. All of the rest of the journalists who are bylined on these articles have not given evidence. They won't turn up in court. Piers Morgan, who is the editor of the Daily Mirror, who uses his platform often to lambast Prince Harry and his wife, Meghan Markle, about their press reform activities. He won't turn up in court to defend himself. And what Prince Harry says, he believes that Piers Morgan has attacked him and tried to intimidate him and his wife in a bid to get him to drop this case. So he's almost saying, Piers Morgan is leaning on him, and if he drops the case, it will go away. It's like a bit of a protection racket, is what Prince Harry says.
Yeah. And as I understand it, Andrew Green, the Mirror Group's barrister, is kind of using his cross-examination to try and paint an alternative picture of how these articles could have been obtained outside of using unlawful intelligence gathering. So surely in that case, having the testimony of these witnesses who were journalists at the Mirror would be really helpful for him.
Yeah, of course, and Prince Harry says that because Andrew Green is going through these 33 articles and saying, what do you think, how do you think this information was obtained? And Prince Harry's saying, well, listen, I don't know. Why don't you ask the journalists? Why don't you bring them here and get them to tell you, which is a good answer, really, because if anyone's going to know, they are, what the Mirror have done, they've admitted to unlawful information gathering and apologised, but that looks as though it's a bit of a PR stunt, which was done at the beginning of this trial a few weeks ago to get ahead of the narrative, to get a news line going, and it worked. It was picked up by the BBC and lots of other outlets.
What was that article? You remember?
It was an article to do with Prince Harry's visit to a nightclub, I think China White's nightclub, back in the day in the 2000s. And what the Mirror admit is that a private investigative company called Avalon gathered that information, whatever it was, illegally, unlawfully, and they've admitted that, and they've offered to pay him compensation.
Obviously, Harry is going to be continuing to give evidence for about another day. What kind of thing do you think we can expect to see over the course of that?
Well, I think there'll be more examination of these alleged suspicious articles. I think he will also talk about the cover-up, the fact that he didn't know that these articles were hacked or blagged, because there's been an alleged cover-up at the Mirror. There's been a sustained operation to delete millions of emails, to get rid of payment records, to keep journalists out the way from giving evidence or talking about this. I think he'll talk about the fact that, some of these journalists are still in position, high positions at the Mirror Group. For example, Gary Jones is the editor-in-chief of the Express Group, which is Express newspapers, which is owned by Reach, owned by the Mirror. So I think there'll be some lines like that,
Taking a step back from his kind of individual witness statement and testimony here, he's obviously got a broader battle with the tabloid media in the UK going on at the moment.
Yeah.
You can see how much this means to him from how emotional his witness statement is, as well as kind of containing all of these allegations. Yeah. What do you think is at stake for Prince Harry and also for the wider press reform movement in the UK?
Well, so clearly Prince Harry wants press reform, which is not unusual. Millions of people in this country want press reform. They're not happy with the papers, especially the tabloid papers. They're not happy that the two most influential papers, for example, the Sun and the Mail, are owned by two kind of tax-dodging billionaire proprietors. They're not happy the fact that anyone who speaks out against the press, and we've seen it in this trial, witnesses are intimidated, the bad articles are written about them, they're humiliated, there are smear articles, there have been allegations that witnesses have been followed from court, or been even shadowed inside the court. Certainly that I can speak to that. And he wants to kind of stop this. And it's kind of good thing to do. It's a public good. However, the cost of it is high. You can see that because he just gets slaughtered in the papers every day, gratuitously. And not only that, not only him, his wife does, and she's, this is not her case.
Talk us through what's going to happen for the rest of the day and the rest of the week, and in fact, the rest of the month, because this trial is going to continue on until the end of June, I believe.
Yeah, so there's 3 weeks of this trial left. I mean, it's about 7 weeks in total. In May, for the first 3 weeks of the trial, was the generic case, which was the organised crime case, allegations of patterns of unlawful activity, so nothing specific, just so concentrated on payments information, emails, lots of testimony from senior Mirror executives, because the big new allegation is that the Mirror board knew about this and the in-house lawyers. Now what will happen now is the specific cases will be heard in the second half of the trial. Starts off with Prince Harry, then there's 2 Coronation Street actors who and a woman called Fiona Whiteman, and their cases will be heard later this week and early next week. And then after that there'll be more evidence, and then towards the end of June there will be the closing speeches by David Sherborne and Andrew Green. They'll probably take about 3 days each,
And then can we expect to hear the final judgment at the end of that, or will it be quite a long wait beforehand?
I think it'll be a delayed judgment, so it might take several months for the judge to decide what his findings are, write them up. They might get published in a redacted form, It'll get handed down first in court, then published in a redacted form online, and then as all the kind of loose ends are tied up, it'll eventually be published in an unredacted kind of final version of it.
Thanks so much for speaking today.
Thanks very much.
The team at Expose News are going to be here for the rest of the week, and we'll be bringing you exclusive interviews with interesting people connected in some way with this monumental phone hacking trial against the Mirror Group. We've just launched a Patreon to support our journalism, so if you'd like early access to these interviews over the course of the week and beyond, please do sign up and support our work.